Lila Carter liked simple routines. On Saturday afternoons she drove to the same grocery store on Maple Avenue, parked in the sun if she could, and walked the aisles with a folded list and a pencil. She was 72, a retired school librarian, and a familiar face to cashiers who had learned her name and her steady smile. Her car was a small silver hatchback that looked neat and well cared for. A quilted tote sat on the passenger seat with her coupons and a reusable bag tucked inside. She did not hurry. She did not waste time either. If someone needed help reaching a high shelf, she helped. If a child looked lost, she waited with them until a parent came back. It was not a job. It was simply how she moved through the world. The day was warm and bright. A few stray clouds passed like boats across the sky. Lila turned into the parking lot and slowed near the entrance. The lot was crowded because a local sports league had finished a game, and families streamed in for snacks and cold drinks. She did not mind waiting. Music played softly from her radio, an old song from the years when she first started working at the library. She tapped the steering wheel in time and watched the flow of cars with the careful attention of someone who had taught teenagers to drive long ago. Patience first, she used to tell them. Vision second. Courtesy always. A car pulled out 2 rows ahead. Lila flicked her turn signal and rolled forward, leaving space for pedestrians to pass. She took a breath and glanced at her list. Milk, brown rice, tea, apples, oatmeal, and a birthday card with flowers. The card was for her neighbor, Edna, who had just baked cookies for the whole block during a heat wave. Lila liked to match the right card to the right person. Edna had a soft laugh and a garden full of zinnias. Flowers would be perfect. She inched closer to the open spot. The day smelled faintly of cut grass from the small median where a landscaper had trimmed the edges that morning. A breeze carried the scent into her car. On the sidewalk, a boy in a bright jersey balanced a soccer ball on his knee while his mother, still in a coach's cap, pushed a cart full of sports drinks. A couple argued in whispers about which cereal to buy. A teenager sat on the curb and scrolled his phone with the solemn look of someone reading important news, though it was likely just a message from a friend. The open space was still clear. Lila checked her mirrors. She was about to turn in when a black sedan darted around her left side and slid toward the same spot. The move was quick, the kind that made a little gust of air and a soft tire squeal. Lila lifted her foot from the gas and touched the brake. Her turn signal blinked on, steady and patient. The other car's brake lights flashed, then the sedan angled its nose toward the space. Lila did not honk. She did not enjoy sharp noises. Instead, she lifted her hand and waited for the driver to see the turn signal and understand. Many times over the years, someone had made a fast move, then realized, then waved an apology and backed away. That was how people usually handled these small tangles. But the sedan kept moving. It slipped into the open space as neatly as a letter into a mail slot and settled there. The brake lights went dark. The engine quieted. For a moment Lila just sat and breathed. The song on the radio reached its chorus and then ended. She clicked off the signal. Another space would open soon, she thought. Still, she could not help the small pinch of disappointment. She had been waiting first. She had signaled. It was not only about the spot. It was about the rule of simple fairness that kept busy places from becoming messy and mean. She rolled forward to look for another space. As she passed the sedan, the driver's door opened. A person stepped out tall, in a baseball cap and sunglasses, holding keys with a bright plastic tag. The driver glanced at her car, then at the empty hands on her steering wheel, and gave a shrug that did not look like an apology. It looked like a challenge, or at least like someone who believed speed decided right and wrong. Lila felt the familiar urge to teach, the same urge that rose when students were careless with library books or with each other. She did not wish to scold. She wished to remind. She stopped and lowered her window. Her voice was calm. "Excuse me," she said. "I had my signal on and was waiting for that space. Would you be willing to take another? I'm happy to wait while you move." The driver paused, half turned away, then turned back. From behind the sunglasses, the expression was hard to read. "First come, first served," the person said. "I came first." "I understand it can feel that way," Lila replied. "But I was already waiting. I had my signal on. Maybe you didn't see." She kept her tone even, like a librarian explaining how to renew a book. If we ask store security, they'll likely say the same. A few steps away, a couple walking past slowed down. The boy with the soccer ball looked up. Lila noticed these details the way she always noticed details quietly, without letting them rush her. The driver shifted weight from one foot to the other, then set the keys on top of the car as if to free both hands. Lila checked herself. She felt the small lift of her chest as breath moved in and out. It was something she had practiced for many years in a different setting, on padded floors with a white belt tied carefully at her waist, later with a black belt earned through patient effort, kind teachers, and many early mornings. She had kept that part of her life mostly private. It was not a secret. It was simply a tool for her own balance and health, a way to keep her body strong and her mind steady. In her neighborhood, people knew her as the lady who loved books and gardens. That was true. She also knew how to stand, breathe, and make space when she needed to. "I don't have time for this," the driver said, picking up the keys again. The words were flat, clipped. "I understand," Lila said. "We are all busy. It would help me a great deal if you'd switch to another spot. If not, I'll find one. But I wanted to speak to you so you might think about it next time." Her voice carried no anger. It carried the weight of a lesson, gently offered. The driver gave a small, dismissive wave and turned toward the store. Lila nodded once, more to herself than to anyone else. She drove on, made a slow loop, and turned down another row. A car backed out near the end, and she waited again with her signal blinking. This time no one rushed. She pulled in, straightened her wheels, and set the brake. The small victory felt soft but real. She gathered her tote and coupons. Before she stepped out, she looked back across the rows and saw the same driver at the edge of the lot, waiting by a crosswalk while two children pushed a cart past. It struck her how many small choices filled a single afternoon, and how each choice touched someone else. She stepped out of her car and closed the door with a careful push. Her knees felt strong. She locked the car and walked toward the entrance. The cart collector nodded to her, and she smiled back. Near the automatic doors, a display of sunflowers glowed like lamps. Lila stopped to admire them and touched a petal with the tip of her finger. She thought again about her neighbor's birthday and made a note to check the card aisle first. Inside the store, cool air flowed around her like a river. The glass doors glided shut. A cashier greeted her by name, and Lila lifted her hand in return. She pushed a cart from the row near the entrance. It rolled straight and smooth. She wiped the handle with a small packet of sanitizer she kept in her purse, another part of her routine. Then she reached for a basket to place inside the cart so that her eggs and bread would not get crushed. She did these things without thinking. They were the quiet moves that made errands feel orderly and safe. Before she turned down the first aisle, she paused and looked back through the glass. The driver from the lot was now inside too, moving quickly, head down, a basket hooked in one arm. Lila felt a faint crease in her forehead, then let it soften. She told herself what she told so many students over the years: carry yourself with calm, and the room changes. She did not mean that the world obeyed calm people. She meant that calm could be a small light in a crowded place, and lights helped people see. She started with produce. Apples first, bright and firm, then a head of romaine, then a bag of carrots. She placed each item carefully, as if setting books on a shelf where others could find them. The simple rhythm soothed her. She compared prices on tea, looked for the kind with the blue corner on the box, and found it halfway down the shelf. She chose oatmeal with less sugar because she had promised her doctor she would pay attention. She laughed a little at herself. In the library, promises were due dates. In life, they were choices made over and over again. Along the canned goods aisle, she came upon a young man trying to reach a jar on a high shelf for his grandmother. Lila offered to hold the lower jars steady while he stood on the balls of his feet and lifted the one he needed down. They thanked each other. Moments later, at the end of the aisle, she saw the driver again, speaking to someone on the phone with quick, short sentences. Lila turned down the next row. She did not avoid the person. She simply preferred peace. As she moved, she kept noticing small kindnesses. A store employee stacked oranges with care so they would not roll away. A teenager picked up a box that had fallen and returned it to the shelf. A mother smiled at her baby, who answered with a delighted squeal that made two strangers smile too. Lila felt steady in the middle of these things. The tightness from the parking lot had loosened. She would choose a birthday card with flowers and maybe a small plant for Edna's porch. She would go home and make tea and read a chapter from the mystery novel by her chair. At the card aisle, she took her time. She read messages and checked envelopes. She held a card with bold zinnias and imagined Edna opening it. Yes, that one. As she slid the card into her cart, she sensed movement beside her and glanced up. The driver stood there, looking at a row of cards without really reading them, fingers tapping the edge of a basket. Lila could feel the leftover charge in the air, the way a room feels after a door slams even if no one is shouting. She nodded, polite but not inviting. The driver did not respond. The tapping stopped. Lila turned her cart and headed toward the dairy section. The store speakers played a song from a much newer decade than her radio had. She did not know the words, but the beat was pleasant. A small group of teenagers joked quietly near the yogurt. She passed them and chose milk from the back of the shelf where the date was furthest out. On the way to the checkout, she noticed the line was long, as it often was on weekends. She did not mind lines. Lines gave people a chance to practice patience and to notice others. She took her place. The driver stepped into the line behind her a moment later. It was a simple fact, and yet it made the afternoon feel slightly tighter again, like a belt on the last notch. Lila placed her items on the belt in tidy groups. The cashier smiled and said, "Nice to see you, Miss Carter." Lila smiled back and asked about the cashier's mother, who had been recovering from a minor operation. The cashier said she was healing well. Lila felt true warmth at the news. As the belt moved, someone further back in the line bumped a cart into another cart. Both people apologized at once and laughed, and the laughter spread like a small, friendly ripple. Lila breathed in and out. She never forgot the quiet lessons from the padded floors of her younger days, where to stand, how to keep your balance, how to use your voice before anything else. She had used those lessons many times without anyone knowing, in faculty meetings, in noisy hallways, on city buses where tempers sometimes rose as high as summer heat. The cashier finished ringing her items. Lila paid, placed her receipt in her purse, and thanked the bagger, a college student who always double-bagged the milk without being asked. She guided the cart toward the exit. The automatic doors opened to bright afternoon light. She paused to let a mother and stroller pass, then stepped out onto the sidewalk where warm air met the cool of the store. In the parking lot, the world felt loud again, the rumble of engines, the clatter of carts, the chatter of families. Lila looked across rows of cars to where hers waited, silver among many colors. A cart rolled loose from a corral as a gust of wind pushed it. She reached out and caught it with one hand before it could glide into a bumper, then steered it gently back and slid it into place. A small thing, she thought, but small things matter. She started toward her car with steady steps, tote secure in the cart, keys ready in her hand. The afternoon had already asked something of her, and she had answered with calm. She hoped the rest of the day would pass that way, too simple, kind, and ordinary. But even as she thought it, she noticed a shadow move across the pavement and felt, rather than saw, someone step into her path near the silver hatchback. She did not tense. She only breathed and kept walking, prepared, as always, to meet the next moment with the same quiet care she brought to all the others. The person who had taken the spot stood between Lila and her silver hatchback, as if the lines of the parking lot had turned into a stage. The sun was warm on the pavement. The cart wheels clicked softly. Lila kept the same calm step she used in her yard when she moved between rosebushes. She did not slow, and she did not hurry. She simply approached her car with steady purpose, her keys in her right hand, her tote in the cart, her mind clear. "Ma'am," the driver said, voice tight but low, "you tried to make a scene back there." Lila met the person's gaze without strain, the way she had looked at students who needed to be seen without being challenged. "I spoke to you because I believed it would help you notice what happened," she said. "I am ready to load my groceries and go home. Please allow me to pass." The driver didn't move. A step away, the black sedan sat in its space, smooth and silent, like a closed door. A family walked behind them, pushing a cart stacked with water bottles and paper towels, and gave the two of them a careful berth. From the corner of her eye, Lila noticed a young couple pause, uncertain whether to keep walking or to watch. She chose to keep her attention on the person in front of her. "First come, first served," the driver repeated, as if saying the words could erase time. "I was quicker." "You were quicker," Lila agreed, "but that is not the same as first. Still, that part is over. I only ask for a little room so I can leave safely." Her tone was even, teacher smooth, the kind that carries meaning without heat. She did not add extra words. She had learned long ago that extra words are like extra weight in a bag, they make every step harder. The driver shifted, not quite a step closer, but enough to make the space smaller. "You tried to call security, right?" the person said, a little smile that did not reach the eyes. "Let's see what they say. If you would like to talk with them, you can go back to the entrance and ask for help," Lila said, nodding toward the sliding doors where a guard in a blue shirt stood near a row of carts. "I am simply going to my car." Someone in the distance called out, "Everything okay?" A cart collector paused a few spaces over and looked their way. Lila gave a small wave of thanks without taking her eyes off the driver. "We are fine," she answered, her voice gentle. The wind lifted a napkin from the ground and sent it skating under the black sedan. Lila felt the same breeze move across her face. She noted how it cooled her, the way a library's air conditioning cools a room that holds more stories than people. She placed one hand lightly on the cart handle, not gripping, only touching. Her other hand set the keys deeper into her palm so they would not jingle and make a sharp sound. She had nothing to hide and nothing to prove, only tasks to complete and respect to maintain. "People like you," the driver said, and then paused, as if deciding how to finish the sentence. Lila waited, giving the person room to choose better words. The sentence faded into the warm air. The driver glanced left and right, as if searching for an audience. A teenager lifted a phone a few inches, then seemed to think better of it and lowered it again. Lila felt a thin thread of relief. She had seen how cameras can make simple moments strange, how people act for them and then feel sorry afterward. "I don't want trouble," the driver said, though the standstill blocked the way. "Nor do I," Lila said. "I want courtesy. We can both have that." It would have been easy to add a lesson. She could have spoken about how a shopping day is a small map of a city's health. She could have said that a tiny bit of patience costs nothing and gives everything. But she kept the lesson inside, where it could not be mistaken for scolding. She took a slow breath, and with the breath came memory, the echoing floor of the community gym, the feel of bare feet on smooth wood, the sound of a teacher's calm instruction about posture, balance, and respect. Respect is not a bow alone, she had learned. Respect is space. Respect is listening with your whole body. You made me look like a bad person, the driver said. There it was, the tender truth under the sharp edges. Lila recognized it the way she could spot a first edition book under a worn dust jacket. People want to be seen as good. People want to be seen as right. You made a quick choice, Lila said softly. It happens. I have made hurried choices too. Then I looked again, and I tried to do better. That is all I am asking for. And now, I ask for space. She tipped her chin toward the thin line of shadow beside her car, the simple path where a person could step aside without losing face. Her hands were still and open, one on the cart, one by her side. She stood as if the ground itself had invited her to be steady. The driver glanced at the car door, the cart, the people around. Tension sat in the shoulders like lifted luggage. Fine, the person said, but the word didn't come with movement. The body stayed where it was, held in place by something the person could not yet name. Pride, maybe. Embarrassment. A stubborn wish that time could turn backwards and return the parking spot to a moment before anyone noticed anything. A silver-haired man from the hardware store next door walked over, the kind of neighbor who knows how to fix leaks and also how to read a room. Afternoon, Miss Carter, he said. His voice was kind, not nosy. Need a hand with your cart? Thank you, Mr. Collins, Lila said, never taking her eyes off the driver. I appreciate your kindness. I'll be all right. The driver's gaze flicked from Mr. Collins to the cart and back to Lila. Something in that small exchange, names used with care, voices quiet and kind, seemed to cool the air by 1 degree. Lila saw it. She also saw a small choice form, like a crossroads that fits on 1 square foot of sun-warmed pavement. Look, the driver said, and finally stepped back half a pace. It was not much, but it was real. Lila nodded once, grateful but not triumphant. She moved her cart into the narrow gap between them with soft wheels and a soft voice. Thank you, she said. She reached for the car handle and unlocked the door. She placed the tote on the front seat, careful with the eggs, careful with the flowers on the cart. The cart sat beside her like a quiet helper. She felt the whole scene breathe, as if the parking lot itself had been holding air and now let it out. Ma'am, a woman's voice called from 2 cars down, do you want me to stand with you while you load up? The woman wore a coach's cap, the same one Lila had noticed earlier near the entrance. That is kind of you, Lila said, but I believe we are fine. She meant it. She also meant that kindness itself had already shifted the ground beneath this moment. She lifted the milk from the cart and placed it into the trunk. She set the apples beside it, then the tea, the oatmeal, the romaine, and the carrots. Each item went in with the same order she used in her kitchen. The driver watched, arms folded now, weight back on both feet. The face, half hid by sunglasses, showed less stiffness than before. The jaw unclenched a fraction. Lila noticed how small changes, added up, make a day feel different. Then a small thing went sideways, as small things will. The breeze that had been friendly found the edge of her receipt and whisked it from the top of the cart. The paper danced in the air and floated under the black sedan. The driver and Lila both watched it go. For 1 bright second, they stood together, 2 people tracking the same moving line. The driver bent down, reached under the car, and caught the edge of the paper. When the person stood and offered it to Lila, their fingers did not touch, but the space between them felt less crowded. Thank you, Lila said, and she meant that more than once. I appreciate it. The driver handed over the receipt with a small nod. "You're welcome," the person said, and for the first time, the words sounded easy. A teenager on a skateboard rolled past, slow and careful, pointing his board around a crack in the pavement. A cart collector returned to work. The coach in the cap waved and turned toward the store. Mr. Collins walked back to the hardware shop, where a bell over the door would ring for him and welcome him in. The afternoon looked ordinary again, like a picture coming back into focus after a brief blur. Lila put the last bag in the trunk and closed it with a gentle push. She moved the cart to the corral and slid it into place. The sound it made, metal against metal, tidy and clear, felt like a period at the end of a long sentence. She turned back to her car. The driver still stood there, not in the way anymore, not quite ready to leave either. "You were very calm," the driver said, as if testing the weight of the words. "Most people would have." "I don't know. Most people would have raised their voice." "I have practiced calm," Lila said. "It is like any practice. You start where you are, and you keep at it." The driver looked at the ground, then at her. "I didn't see your signal," the person said after a moment. "Or maybe I didn't look for it. I was thinking about a call I have to make. I'm late." "It's not an excuse. It's just what happened." "Thank you for telling me," Lila said. "I hope your day goes more smoothly from here." Silence stood with them for a breath, and in that quiet the parking lot seemed to reset itself. Engines started and stopped, doors opened and closed, children laughed as they discovered those two bouncy lines painted near the curb that every child needs to step on. Life resumed its small, friendly noise. Just then, a store security officer appeared at the edge of the aisle, walking at a regular pace, not hurried. The guard's blue shirt stood out against the cars. He glanced at Lila, at the driver, at the cart corral, and offered a simple nod that asked without words, "Do you need me?" "We're all right, thank you," Lila said. Her voice carried certainty. The guard accepted that answer and kept walking, greeting a person whose car alarm chirped twice by accident. The driver rubbed a hand along the side of the black sedan, as if smoothing down a wrinkle in the afternoon. "I should go inside," the person said. "I need to pick up a few things." "Take care," Lila replied, not as a farewell line, but as a genuine wish. The driver began to move away, then paused. "You said we could talk to security," the person said. "You didn't push it?" "I prefer conversation to complaint," Lila said. "It works more often than people think." The driver nodded, then walked toward the entrance with a stride that looked lighter by a few ounces. Lila opened her car door and sat for a moment before starting the engine. She let the quiet settle around her like a shawl. She placed the receipt in her purse, touched the card with flowers to keep it from sliding, and checked her mirrors. In the glass, she saw the reflection of a woman who still loved order and patience, who had spent a lifetime teaching people how to look closer before they made a choice. She turned the key. The engine hummed. She checked the rearview mirror again. The driver in the baseball cap had stopped near the sunflowers at the entrance and was reading the little sign that said, "Support local growers." A small thing, but small things add up. Lila smiled, not because she had won anything, but because this day full of ordinary tasks and a complicated moment had given her a chance to be the same person in every place, in a library, in a grocery aisle, and here, under a warm sky, by a silver car that still held the scent of cut grass in its vents. She eased out of her space and steered toward the exit. The lot moved like a quiet river again, people taking turns, signals blinking a polite language. She planned to drive past the community center on her way home to check the flyer board. There was a notice about a health workshop next week, and she had promised to bring a stack of large print handouts for anyone who needed them. She liked to keep promises. She liked to make sure people could read what helped them. As she reached the end of the row, a thought brushed her mind and stayed. Sometimes the path to better starts with a person simply making room. She did not know yet that the short exchange by her car would ripple outward, that it would be remembered by the teenager who had put his phone away, or by the coach in the cab, or by the driver who would think differently the next time a turn signal blinked. She only knew that she had stood where she needed to stand and said what she needed to say. She turned onto Maple Avenue and drove home at an easy speed, hands steady, heart steady, the afternoon opening ahead of her like a page ready to be read. Lila drove the short distance to the community center with her window partly down and her mind as orderly as her grocery bags. Maple Avenue slid by in soft, familiar scenes: children on scooters, a dog with a red bandana, the bakery where they set out day-old bread at 4 o'clock. She parked in the small lot behind the brick building and took the path lined with hedges toward the front door. The notice board stood just outside, protected by glass, with flyers for a blood pressure clinic, a free tax help day, and a music night where local seniors would sing songs from their youth. She loved that one most. She had already promised to bring an extra folding chair for Edna. She checked the flyers for the health workshop scheduled next week. The date was correct. The time was clear. The font was large enough for easy reading. She slipped 2 large print handouts from her tote and added them to the small stack in the lobby, then waved to the desk volunteer, a college student in a green polo. "Hello, Miss Carter," he said. "Do you think we'll need more chairs for Tuesday's event?" "Let's add 6, she said. "If we do not need them, we can fold them again. It is easier to be ready than to be sorry." While he went to the storage closet, Lila glanced through the front windows and saw a familiar cap crossing the sidewalk, the coach from the grocery store. The woman entered with a friendly nod. "We meet again," she said. "I brought juice boxes for the after-school program." "That is kind of you," Lila replied. "Your players looked happy at the store." "They're good kids," the coach said. Then, lowering her voice just a little, she added, "I saw how calm you were. It helped me settle my own voice." "Thank you." "Calm is a choice we can practice," Lila said. "Like dribbling." The coach laughed softly. "You sound like my best assistant." She turned to sign a clipboard at the front desk. The lobby's air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and crayons. A bulletin board held thank you notes written in careful, colorful letters. Lila studied them with the same attention she gave old book plates. "Thank you for the extra snacks. Thank you for fixing the light. Thank you for the chair by the window." Simple gratitude, plainly said. The glass door opened again. A young man stepped in, the teenager Lila had noticed earlier, the one who had lifted his phone and then put it away. He carried a skateboard by the trucks and nodded at Lila as if they were already acquainted. "Hey," he said, respectful. "I'm Eli." "Hello, Eli," Lila said. "I'm Lila. I saw what happened at the store," he said. "The part where it almost turned into people just watching. I didn't want to be that person." "Not watching can be a kind of help," Lila said. "So can watching in the right way, looking for a manager, staying nearby, using your voice to ask if someone needs assistance. You made a choice. That matters." He looked relieved, as if someone had taken a backpack off his shoulders. "I volunteer here sometimes," he said. "Skate class on Thursdays." He gestured to the board. "We teach little kids to bend their knees." "Then you already know about balance," Lila said. "Very useful." The desk volunteer returned with chairs. Lila helped set them up along the wall. The small team of 3 moved with quiet rhythm, making neat rows. The lobby filled briefly with the soft scrape of chair legs and the light chatter of people signing in for a craft class. Calm settled over the work like a clean sheet on a bed. Through the windows, Lila noticed a black sedan pull into a space near the entrance. The driver's baseball cap was unmistakable. For a breath she felt the day tilt, not harshly, but like a picture frame that needs one small adjustment. The driver stepped out, phone in one hand, a list in the other, and quick strides carried the person toward the door. Lila did not look away. She did not stare. She simply made room in her own mind for the chance of a second meeting. The door swung open. The driver paused at the threshold, saw Lila, and stopped as if one step had landed on unexpected ground. The face behind the sunglasses showed surprise and then something like worry, not about Lila, but about unfinished business with the day itself. "Hello," Lila said, keeping the tone simple. The driver nodded. "Hi." A beat of quiet followed. The lobby sounds: paper rustle, pen scratch, the hum of a vending machine felt louder in the pause. Then the driver added, "I came to post a notice for a yard sale. I heard the board is here." "It is," Lila said, and gestured toward the glass case by the door. "The desk volunteer can unlock it for you." The driver stepped inside. People moved naturally to make space. Eli shifted a chair 2 inches so everyone could pass easily. The coach lifted her juice boxes and smiled in welcome. The small acts made the lobby feel like a well-tuned instrument, no one note too loud, all working together. At the board, the driver realized a staple gun was required. The desk volunteer, balancing a stack of program schedules, said, "I'll grab it from the office one moment." He left the counter briefly, and the driver, still holding the flyer, turned and nearly bumped into a woman with a stroller. "Sorry," the driver said quickly, stepping sideways. It was the kind of minor tangle that happens 100 times a day. But the sideways step brought the driver close to Lila, who stood near the chairs with Eli, checking the spacing. The driver stopped short, uncertain whether to move forward, backward, or wait. A thin slice of awkwardness opened in the air. "Here," Lila said, and took one step back to create a clear lane. "Please go ahead." The driver hesitated, then tried to squeeze through a narrow gap anyway, a choice made from habit rather than need. In doing so, the driver's free hand touched Lila's forearm, not a strike, not a push, just a quick, clumsy hold as if to steady themselves while passing. The touch lingered half a second longer than polite. It was small, but it belonged to the same family as the blocked space in the parking lot. It asked Lila to shrink so someone else would not have to pause. Lila made a choice. Her body remembered the clean, practiced movement taught to her years ago: turn slightly, release gently, and create room. She rotated her forearm in a small circle that guided the driver's fingers away without force, stepped 1 foot back to a balanced stance, and gave a clear, steady cue with her voice. "Please let go," she said, simple words, not sharp, not loud. "I need space." The driver blinked, startled not by pain, there was none, but by how easily the unthinking hold had become nothing. Eli saw the move and let out a quiet whoa, not the kind of whoa people say to cheer a contest, but the kind they say when they watch someone fix a jammed drawer with 2 soft taps. The coach's eyes widened with respect. The stroller's wheels rolled past smoothly, the mother whispering, "Thank you," as she went. Lila did not move forward. She did not move closer. She stayed where she was, grounded, hands relaxed at her sides. "I would like you to post your flyer," she said gently. "We can both do our tasks without getting in each other's way." The driver's shoulders eased down, a sign that the body had heard the message even before the mind caught up. Sorry," the person said. "I didn't realize I was holding on." "It happens," Lila replied. "And we can choose better the moment we see it." The desk volunteer returned with the staple gun. The driver stepped to the board and posted the yard sale notice with careful corners, as if the act itself could correct the earlier squeeze. When done, the person stood for a moment with both hands on the edges of the glass, gathering thoughts like loose papers. "Is everything all right?" the volunteer asked, attentive but not alarmed. "Yes," Lila said. "We are all set." She turned slightly toward the driver. "Would you like to practice a better way to move through a crowded space?" She offered the question the same way she might offer a bookmark, useful if wanted, Easy to decline. The driver looked around. No one in the lobby seemed interested in a show. They were simply living their afternoon. That made it easier to say yes. Okay, the driver said quietly. If you don't mind. Not at all, Lila said. She faced the driver at an easy distance. Stand as you normally do when you want to pass by someone, she said. The driver stood with one foot already angled to slide through. Now, Lila continued, instead of reaching, try saying, excuse me, I'm going to step behind you on the left. Then wait for them to step or nod. Words first, then movement. The driver tried it. Excuse me, the person said, voice softer than in the parking lot. I'm going to step behind you on the left. Lila nodded and shifted one step right. The driver passed. The path felt simple, safer by 3 inches and a moment of consent. Eli whistled under his breath. Words first, he repeated, as if filing it under skate tips. The coach smiled. I'm stealing that for the field, she said. We always tangle at the bench. Please do, Lila said. It prevents bumps and bruised feelings. The driver looked at their own hands, then at Lila. I think I rush because I'm late a lot, the person said. I make quick moves and tell myself I'll explain after. But by then, people are upset. Rushing is a habit, Lila said. Like patience is a habit. We can practice the one we want more. The driver nodded, thoughts moving into place. Were you trained or something? The person asked, searching for the right word that did not sound like a movie. I practiced a traditional art for many years, Lila said. We learned to protect ourselves and others with care and with as little force as possible. We also learned how to speak before we act. That makes sense, the driver said. I felt silly holding your arm. I didn't even mean it. Intention matters, Lila replied, and so does effect. You saw it quickly and let go. That is good. The lobby began to clear as class times shifted. The volunteer took the staple gun back to the office. Eli walked a slow circle, thinking, then rolled his board under his shoe so it would not slip. The coach checked her watch. Lila looked at the neat line of chairs and felt a thought arrive with clarity. The moment she had avoided for years telling people about her black belt was now a bridge, not a boast. It could help someone. Would anyone be interested in a short, low-impact safety session here next week? She asked the small group. Breathing for calm. Using your voice. How to stand. How to ask for help. No jumps. No throws. Only simple, safe steps. The coach lifted her hand immediately. Yes, she said. I'll bring the parents from my team. They need this as much as the kids. Eli's eyes lit. Can teens come? Teens are very welcome, Lila said. You can also help demonstrate the parts about balance. The driver spoke last. I should come too, the person said. Not as punishment. As practice. I think practice is what I need. Practice is what we all need, Lila said, and the words felt like a key turning easily in a lock. They checked the calendar at the front desk. The volunteer found a free hour in the small gym on Thursday evening. Lila wrote the time down in her planner and promised to bring printed guides with pictures. The coach offered cones to mark safe distances. Eli said he could make a simple sign, calm and safe, everyday skills for crowded places. As they wrapped up, the driver hovered for a moment, then gathered courage like a breath. Miss Carter, the person said. About earlier both times. I am sorry for the way I moved through it. I didn't give you room. I didn't give myself room either. Thank you for saying so, Lila replied. Today gave us more than one chance to choose better. We used the last one well. The driver smiled, a small, honest curve. I'll see you Thursday, the person said, tapping the yard sale notice. Maybe I'll bring extra water. That would be helpful, Lila said. They parted with simple nods. The afternoon light through the lobby windows turned warmer, like the last pages of a good book. Lila felt the day's line change direction, not with a shout or a headline, but with a decision she had made a minute ago and would keep making, to share what she knew in a way anyone could use. On her way out, she paused by the bulletin board and straightened a crooked flyer with 2 fingers. The small act pleased her. Outside, she watched a breeze lift the leaves of the hedges and set them down again. Her car waited where she had left it, quiet and clean. She placed her tote on the seat, touched the card with flowers to make sure it would not bend, and rested her palms on the steering wheel without starting the engine. The community center door opened behind her. Eli jogged out, stopping by her window. "Miss Lila," he said, catching his breath. "What you did with your arm, can you show me Thursday?" "Yes," she said. "And we will start with breathing. Words first, then movement," he repeated, grinning. "Exactly," she said. He trotted back inside. Lila looked at the sky, at the steady line of the horizon, and felt the kind of quiet that comes after a decision is made. She turned the key and drove home with the easy certainty of someone who knew her next step. The breaking point, she understood, was not a loud moment or a hard push. It was the point where she decided to open a door she had kept politely closed. On Thursday, she would hold it wide so others could walk through with steadier feet, softer hands, and stronger voices. On Thursday afternoon, Lila set her kitchen table like a small workshop. She laid out handouts she had drawn the night before with a thick black marker, simple figures showing feet, arrows for small steps, a speech bubble that said, "Please give me space," and another that said, "Excuse me, I'm going to pass on your left." Each page had 3 parts: breathe, speak, move, so no one would have to remember a long list. She slid each sheet into a clear cover so it would last. Then she packed tape, a roll of blue painter's tape for floor lines, a few name tags, and a small first aid pouch she always carried, though she hoped no one would need it. She called the community center to confirm the room. The desk volunteer said, "Small gym at 6, Miss Carter." She thanked him and put a sticky note on her planner, "Leave at 5:20. Bring extra pens." She added a thermos of tea to her bag and 2 wrapped granola bars in case someone forgot to eat. It was a habit from the library days: hungry people have short patience, fed people listen better. At 5 o'clock, she changed into comfortable slacks and soft-soled shoes. In the hallway mirror she noticed a little flutter of nerves below her ribs, the kind a teacher feels on the first day of class. She smiled at herself. Nerves meant she cared. She picked up her tote, checked the list one more time, and drove to the center with the same steady care she brought to every errand. A mild setback met her at the lobby: the small gym was not empty. A dance group had been bumped from their usual room because of a paint job, and their leader was laying down a portable speaker. The desk volunteer hurried over. "I'm so sorry," he said. "We double booked. The multipurpose room is open, but the floor is smaller." "Smaller is fine," Lila said, and her voice turned the problem into a plan. "Let's borrow 8 extra chairs, and I'll mark clear walking lanes with tape." "Thank you for telling me early." They moved together, the volunteer, a custodian, and Lila rolling a cart of chairs down the hall. Lila reached the room 15 minutes early instead of the 30 she had hoped for, but her hands stayed calm. She made 2 blue tape lanes side by side, each the width of a grocery aisle. She taped a square by the door labeled "safe spot" where anyone could step if they needed a rest or space. She wrote 3 rules on a flip chart: 1. Kind voices. 2. No rushing. 3. Stop anytime. People began to arrive in a gentle stream. The coach from the store came first with a canvas bag of cones and a stack of paper cups. "For water," she said. Mr. Collins from the hardware store wheeled in a fan. "Air's a bit close in here," he said. Eli jogged in with a poster he had made on the center's printer, calm and safe everyday skills. He taped it on the door with care. Seniors from the morning fitness class came, a pair of store cashiers came still wearing name tags, and a mother with 2 middle school kids came holding a bowl of grapes. The cart collector from the grocery lot slipped in, shy but smiling. Then the driver from the parking lot walked in carrying 2 cases of water and a pack of napkins. "I thought this might help," the person said. "And I brought a notepad to write things down." "It helps a great deal," Lila said, taking the water with thanks. At 6:10, the room was full. Lila waited until the door stopped opening and then walked to the front of the tape lanes. "Good evening," she said, warm and plain. "Thank you for coming. My name is Lila Carter. Tonight we will practice simple habits for crowded places. We will not jump. We will not push. We will use breath, words, and small steps. If anything feels uncomfortable, step into the safe spot or sit. You are in charge of your body." A few people nodded, relief visible in their shoulders. Lila began with breath. "Place a hand on your belly," she said. "Breathe in for a count of 4. Out for a count of 6. The room inhaled and exhaled together. The fan hummed. The cones sat like small orange trees. On the third breath the air changed a little, quieter, less hurried. "Second," Lila said, "stance." She stood with her feet under her hips, knees soft, head level. "This is steady. It keeps you from being thrown off by a bump. You can do it in a line, on a bus, anywhere." People copied her. Shoes squeaked softly as they found their place on the floor. "Third," she said, voice. She lifted one hand, palm open at shoulder height, not stiff, just clear. "Say, please give me space." They said it with her. "Say, excuse me, I'm going to pass on your left." They tried it and smiled, some at the words, some at themselves. A hand went up. It was an older woman in a floral shirt. "What if my voice shakes?" she asked. "Shaking is allowed," Lila said. "Words still work. You can also point to the safe spot or a nearby chair and say, 'I'm going over there now.' The important thing is to choose and to speak." They practiced in pairs at the tape lanes. One person stood as a shopper, the other as a passer. "Words first, then movement," Lila reminded them. Eli demonstrated with the cart collector, who found his voice grew rounder when he looked at people's chins rather than their eyes. "It makes me less shy," he said, pleased. A cashier noticed that putting her hand on her tote strap kept her shoulders from creeping up. "I look less tense," she said, surprised at her own reflection in the door glass. A small trouble popped up when the room's microphone refused to turn on. Lila laughed lightly. "We will practice volume the old way," she said. "Breath supports sound." She showed how to breathe low and speak out without strain. Her words reached the back row fine. Next came make room and move. Lila placed 2 cones 3 feet apart. "Sometimes you need to create space without touching anyone," she said. "Try this, step 1 foot back and to the side, turn your body slightly, and use your hand like a traffic sign while you speak. Your step makes a lane. Your words tell people what you're doing." She walked through it slowly. People followed. The coach turned the cones into a quiet game, who could make the clearest lane with the fewest steps. Lila encouraged a mother to show her children how to do the same move while holding a backpack. "It works at school halls too," she said. The driver stood near the back, watching closely, not yet stepping into the lane. Lila did not call them out. She taught 2 more small skills, the diagonal, which is simply walking on a gentle angle around a tight spot instead of trying to squeeze straight past, and the pause and point, where you stop, point to a safer space, say "I'm moving there now," and then go. The room practiced. Laughter rose in short, soft bursts when pairs almost bumped and then didn't. Then came release and reset. Lila addressed the room. Sometimes someone takes your wrist to hurry you or to steer you. You can release without force. She showed the same gentle forearm circle she had used at the board, turn toward the thumb, step back half a foot, free your hand, and raise your palm to signal stop while saying, please let go. She made it slow and kind. This is not a contest, she said. It is a way to get your hand back and reset the space. She added a seated version for those who use a chair or a walker, rotate the forearm close to the body, lean slightly away, and ask for help with eye contact to a third person. A few people looked unsure. Lila chose Mr. Collins to be her partner. They moved like two friends showing a dance step. Then she invited anyone who wished to try. A retired nurse raised her hand first. I want to know I can get my hand back even if my joints are stiff, she said. Lila guided her through it, tiny and precise, and the nurse's face lit up when her hand came free without effort. Oh, she said, wonder in the word. I didn't have to be strong. I had to be clear. A second trouble flickered at the edge of the room when a man began to talk about a hard day on a bus years ago. His voice climbed as memory grabbed it. Lila stepped closer, softened her own voice, and said, you are safe here. Let's sit for a minute. She walked him to a chair, put a cup of water in his hand, and asked the group to take 3 deep breaths. The room followed her lead, and the man settled. Thank you, he murmured. I forgot to breathe. That's why we practice, Lila said. The driver lifted a hand at last. May I try the words? The person asked. Please, Lila said, opening the lane with a small step. The driver stood across from her, took a breath, and said, excuse me, I'm going to pass on your left. The sentence was steady, unhurried. Lila shifted a step, the driver passed, and the room gave a small, warm cheer, the kind that says we see you rather than we judge you. Now try the pause, Lila said. The driver stopped, pointed to the safe spot square, and said, I'm going over there now. Then the person walked there, stood, and smiled. That felt easy, the driver said, surprised. Like the path was already there, and I just had to say it. Words make paths, Lila said. So do small steps. They moved to bystander skills. 3 roles, Lila said, writing on the flip chart. Speaker, use your voice to support the person who needs space. Helper, go get staff or stand nearby. Witness, watch and remember details in case the person wants to report later. The coach volunteered to be speaker. Ma'am, do you need me to get the manager? She practiced, addressing no one in particular but making the sentence clear. Eli tried helper, jogging to the door and back as if fetching a guard. The card collector played witness and learned to note the clock and the aisle number with a quick glance instead of filming on his phone. That feels better, he said. I can help without making a show. A mother asked a question. What about kids? What can they remember? 3 steps, Lila said, turning a page on the flip chart. Stand tall. Use your voice. Find a safe adult. She pointed to a painted sign on the wall and added, you can teach them to look for the badge or name tag of a staff person. The 2 middle schoolers practiced together. Their voices came out small at first, then grew. Near the end, a new voice spoke from the doorway, the store security guard in the blue shirt. He held a paper under his arm. Sorry to intrude, he said. Someone told me you were teaching. We have a safety bulletin at the store. May I leave a few copies? You are welcome, Lila said. Would you also tell us where customers can go if they need help inside? We have a help desk near the entrance, he said. Cashiers can call for us. Anyone can ask for an escort to their car. We're happy to walk people out. Lila underlined ask for an escort on the flip chart. A cashier raised her hand. I'll remind the team, she said. The last practice round felt different. People moved in the lanes with quiet assurance. When one pair got stuck, they laughed and reset without fuss. When a chair squeaked, no one startled. Breathing came easier. The driver stepped into a practice with Mr. Collins and handled the release and reset with careful hands, then stepped aside and gave room for the next pair without being told. At 7, Lila closed the hour with thanks. You did good work, she said. You took small steps and made them clear. Please take a handout. Share it with a neighbor. If you want more practice, we can meet again next week. Hands went up at once. Yes, please. Same time. Can teens bring friends? The center director, who had slipped in halfway through, said, we can put this on the calendar for a month and see how it grows. The coach offered the school gym for a future session. Eli said he would make a larger poster. The driver, cheeks pink but smiling, said, I can cover printing costs for a while. And I'm happy to bring water again. Lila thanked them each, naming their gifts so people could hear how a group becomes a team. As the room emptied, small proof of progress showed up in ordinary ways. At the door, two people reached it at the same time, both paused, and one said, you first, while stepping back into a diagonal. In the hallway, a child practiced, please give me space, at a whisper and giggled when her mother answered, thank you for telling me. The cart collector said he would ask his manager about a sign near the cart corral, need a hand to your car? Ask us. Outside, the evening air felt kind. The driver walked beside Lila to the parking lot. Two cars turned into the same narrow lane near the exit and then both stopped, uncertain. The driver lifted a hand inside the window, pointed to the other car, and mouthed, you go. The other driver smiled and waved. The lane cleared. The driver turned to Lila. I used to speed up there, the person said. Today I slowed down first. That is the whole lesson, Lila said. They reached Lila's silver hatchback. The sky held a last stripe of color. The coach called across the lot, see you next week. Eli spun his board once, caught it, and gave a thumbs up. The fan in the multipurpose room clicked off. The cones went back into their bag. The center's door closed with a soft sound that felt like a promise kept. Lila sat in her car for a moment and let the quiet fill her. The small setbacks, the room change, the broken microphone, the brief tightness when memory rose had not stopped the work. They had given her a chance to show how to adjust without haste. People had breathed more evenly by the end than at the start. They had spoken simple words and found that simple words can move a whole room. She turned the key and drove home on Maple Avenue, passing the bakery with the day-old bread, the hedges by the center, the street where Edna's zinnias leaned toward the sidewalk. The night felt steady. She thought about the handout titles breathe, speak, move and smiled at how they fit more than a class. They fit a whole way to meet a busy world. Tomorrow she would print 10 more. On the back, she would add one more line, practice makes calm. Friday morning began with light on the kitchen floor. Lila poured tea, opened the window a little, and listened to the soft sounds of her street birds, a distant bus, the neighbor's hose tapping the sidewalk. She set last night's handouts on the table and smiled at the notes people had penciled in the margins, words first works. Safe spot helped. Tell cashier about escort. She added a few ideas for next time, a picture of the diagonal path, a reminder to drink water, and a line at the top that said, you are in charge of your body. Her phone buzzed with a text from the community center. The director wrote, great class. Requests for more. Can we book same time for 3 more Thursdays? Lila replied, yes. Happy to help. A second message arrived from the driver. The words were careful and kind. Thank you for letting me practice last night. I printed 20 extra handouts at work. I'll drop them at the desk today. Lila read the message twice, grateful for the plain goodness of it. At 10, she walked to Edna's house with the card that had flowers on it. The zinnias in the front yard looked like painted buttons. Edna opened the door, saw the card, and hugged Lila with a small, happy sound. Come in for tea, she said. 4 neighbors were already there, and they pulled out a chair for Lila. News passed around the table like light passes through a window. The school would repaint the crossing lines, the library had a new large print section, the bakery was trying a sugar-free muffin. Someone asked Lila about the class. We learned breathing, she said. And how to speak before we move. Simple things. The neighbors nodded. One of them, who used a cane, said, I want to try the release you showed the nurse. My grandchild sometimes holds my hand too tight when we cross the street. Lila promised to show her on Sunday afternoon. After lunch, Lila stopped by the grocery store. Near the entrance, a new sign hung at eye level, need a hand to your car? Ask us. Security can escort you. Another small sign rested above the cart corral, return carts here. Please leave space for others. Lila felt the kind of smile that begins in the chest and rises slowly. The cashier with the neat handwriting waved. We put up the signs this morning, she said. The guard walked 3 people out before noon. In the produce section, Lila met the cart collector. He looked proud in a soft way. I asked my manager for the sign, he said. We also moved the rack so the lane is wider. He pointed to the change. It gave 2 more inches to pass without bumping. 2 inches are not much on a map. In a busy aisle, they are the difference between stress and ease. Thank you, Lila said. You helped everyone today. On her way out, she saw the driver posting a small flyer to the community board, Calm and Safe Everyday Skills, Thursdays at 6. The person had drawn a tiny speech bubble on the corner that said, Please give me space, with a happy face beside it. When they turned and noticed Lila, they lifted a hand. I had a test this morning, the driver said. School drop-off was crowded, so I tried the diagonal path and said what I was doing. It worked. I got my kid to the gate, and we didn't bump anyone's backpack. It was said with the relief of a new habit finding its first success. I also let another car go first in the lane, the person added, almost shy. It felt strange for 1 second and then, lighter. Light is a sign you chose well, Lila said. Saturday brought more proof in small pieces. Eli sent a picture of the poster he made on the center's printer, bigger letters, thicker arrows, and a line at the bottom, we practice kindness. The coach wrote that she had used words first, then movement at the bench during a close game, and it kept 2 players from crowding each other near the water cooler. Mr. Collins left a note in Lila's mailbox, fan repaired. Bringing it again Thursday. On Sunday, after showing the release to the neighbor with the cane, Lila took a short walk. She passed the bulletin board at the center and saw a new paper pinned beside her class flyer. It was from the store security guard and listed clear ways to ask for help, tell a cashier, wait by the help desk, call the number on your receipt. Below it, someone had added in tidy print, breathe in 4, out 6. The handwriting looked like the cashier's. Lila laughed softly. The town's messages were beginning to line up like a friendly chorus. Monday morning, the community newsletter posted a short piece, Calm Class Helps Neighbors Share Space. The writer kept it simple. There was no drama, only a photo of a tape lane and a quote, words make paths. Lila had agreed to the photo because it showed feet, not faces, and because it taught without making a spectacle out of anyone's hard moment. The piece listed the next 3 dates and the center's phone number. By noon, the desk volunteer wrote to say the phone had rung all morning with kind voices asking, "May I come? I am not very strong." He had answered, We don't measure strength that way. Please come. The good changes did not happen all at once, and not every hour was easy. On Wednesday evening, a bus driver honked too long at a turn and a passenger snapped back, and for a breath the air felt sharp. But a woman in the second row said, "We can make room," and people shifted their bags and let the moment pass. In the store the next day, two carts met nose to nose near the eggs. One shopper said, "I'm going to step back," the other said, "Thank you," and they traded places with a tiny, shared bow that made a teenager smile without knowing why. The driver kept returning to class. Sometimes the person arrived early to help set up chairs. Sometimes they stayed after to roll up tape and count cones back into the bag. In the third week, they stood at the front with Lila and demonstrated the pause and point, speaking in a voice that no longer rushed. "I used to think speed solved problems," the person told the group. "Now I know space solves most of them." People nodded, the kind of nod that says, "I have felt that too." One Tuesday afternoon, Lila ran into the coach in the card aisle. They both reached for a birthday card with sunflowers and laughed. The coach said her team had started a small ritual. Before a game, they breathe together for 4 counts in, 6 counts out. "It helps the kids more than another speech," she said. "It helps the parents too." She held up the card. "I'm buying this for our school secretary. She is the one who really keeps peace in the halls." A week later, the first handout ran out at the center. The driver kept their promise and printed 60 more. The center bought a small holder and mounted it by the door. A child pointed to the figures one day, traced a finger along the arrow, and said to her mother, "I can do that." The mother folded the page into her bag like a map. People told Lila small stories that stacked into a bigger one. A retiree felt safer at the farmer's market because she knew how to stand and how to ask for help with her bags. A cashier used her voice to guide two customers past each other when both looked tired at the end of a long shift. A high school student used speaker, helper, witness when a friend needed support on a bus. None of these moments reached a news channel, and that was the best part. They stayed where they belonged, in the ordinary lanes of daily life, where a soft correction can change the whole day. Sometimes, when neighbors asked, Lila shared that she had trained for many years in a traditional art. She kept the words simple: balance, breath, respect. She did not talk about belts unless someone asked. When they did, she said only, "Yes, I earned a black belt. It taught me to be calm first." People learned to see the black belt as a quiet tool, like reading glasses or a garden needle, or something that helps a person move through the world with more care. There was one more change at the store. Near the front, the manager placed a small table with a sign, "Community Resources." On it sat the center's flyer, the store's escort policy, a list of local classes, and a small stack of handouts that said "Breathe, Speak, Move." The stack went down a little each day. On a Saturday morning, Lila saw the driver standing by that table, refilling the handouts and wiping the surface with a cloth. The person looked up, met Lila's eyes, and grinned. Nothing needed to be said. One afternoon near the end of the month, Lila went to the store to buy tea and fruit for a neighbor who was feeling under the weather. The lot was busy. As she turned down a row, two cars angled toward the same open space in a way that could have become a repeat of her first hard moment. But it did not. The car on the left lifted a hand, pointed to the other car, and mouthed, "You go." The car on the right nodded, pulled in, and straightened once. A third car waited patiently while a couple loaded groceries. No horns. No sharp words. A small, neat dance on warm pavement. Lila parked farther away and did not mind the walk. On the sidewalk she saw Eli tap his board once and stop it with his shoe. He was posting a fresh class flyer with bigger letters. "Last week we had 3 new teens," he said. "One of them taught her little brother to say, 'I'm going to pass on your right,' and he keeps practicing in the kitchen. he laughed. Their mother says she hears that line 10 times a day. Inside, the store felt easier. The aisles were the same width, and the shelves held the same goods, but the mood had moved by one small notch toward kind. Lila bought tea, apples, and ginger. She paid and asked the guard for an escort to the car since her neighbor's street had uneven pavement. The guard walked with her, friendly and quiet, and placed the bag in her trunk. "We're doing about a dozen escorts a day now," he said, "and people say thank you every time." On the way home, Lila drove by the community center and saw a child pointing to the safe spot square on the multipurpose room floor while a parent nodded. She thought of all the small squares where people could stand and rest while the world moved around them. She thought of tape lanes and hand-drawn arrows and how a simple sentence can open a path where anger would not. That evening, with tea in hand, she sat by her window and wrote a short note in her planner, the way she used to write after a good day at the library: "Outcome, more room." Under it she added, "People ask for escorts. Signs help. Children learn quick. Driver keeps practicing. Calm spreads." She set down her pen and watched the sky grow soft. The day had not been dramatic. It had been full of steady proof. If someone had asked for a lesson, she would have offered one sentence: real strength is calm that makes room. Not calm that looks away, not calm that accepts harm, but calm that uses breath and words and small steps to shape a safer space for everyone nearby. She had seen it now across weeks at a cart corral, at a bus stop, at a bench by a field, and at a door where two people paused, then smiled, and passed. Before bed, she checked the next class date. The page already held names: the coach, 2 cashiers, a grandfather, 3 teens, and driver bring water. Lila put a star next to the last line, not because the person was special above anyone else, but because the star meant progress made. Then she turned off the lamp and let the house grow quiet. In the morning she would go to the store again for milk. She would use her turn signal and wait her turn. If someone made a quick move, she would speak with the same even voice and the same open hand. And whether the lot was crowded or calm, she would know that her town now had more people who understood how to share space with care. The path forward was not a big road. It was many small lanes, lit by simple words and steady breath, taken one step at a time.